Aloha guys, welcome to my Patreon. This is my update on our controversial topic this week. If you've been following along, as you know, our controversial topic that I chose this week was how hormones and nutrition play a role in your sexual orientation. Very, very controversial year. A lot of things going on this year in the transgender community. And I want to take some time to discuss the evolution of how transgender as a title came along. So being in the hormone industry as a hormone therapist now for almost 15 years, what I've seen, so my observations are very scientific and very simple to understand. For years, probably the generation before mine, you would have children going through puberty and having like a reverse hormonal spike, which means some women were having testosterone spikes and going through more of a boy's puberty. And some boys were having estrogen spikes and going through more of what would be a teenage girl's puberty. Now, all of these hormonal changes, evolutionary, are associated with nutrition. And that's why I wanted to bring in the nutrition. So the nutrition is really important. What you feed your children is very, very important. On a level that is very scientific and is not something that the average human really understands. So a lot of these hormonal changes that are taking place during puberty that are not the norm can be determined and or associated with the child's upbringing, how they were fed, and their regular nutrition. So when you bring in McDonald's to the equation, disgusting things that you're buying that are poisoned by Monsanto's and other monster companies, we don't know what effect that has. And our job as professionals is to pay very close attention as we age and as we build experience in the industry to what effects these things have. Now, I've noticed specifically in the realms of hormones, this huge change and influx in reverse hormone spike at puberty. And essentially what's taking place is we have this title. The world, I don't know who came up with it, government or the world came up with a title, transgender. It's there to stay for sure. I don't want to take it away. I just want to help people understand what that title actually does psychologically to somebody in this position, a teenager, who's going through puberty and is having a reverse hormonal spike. And this is something that psychiatrists are not going to agree with because there's no money in this idea and there's no money in this potential theory. This theory is sound in the way that it will help future teenagers struggling with these issues to seek the medical attention that they require to get past it or fight it in some instances. So you have a boy going through puberty and his testosterone is not spiking, he's not growing his beard, his voice is not dropping, his libido and sex drive is not there. Okay, this gentleman is going through something that is not scientifically normal, and it's due to his nutrition. Now, how we treat that is we coddle them in this generation, and we say, okay, well maybe he's a mama's boy. That's the historical saying, a mama's boy. A mama's boy, believe it or not, during puberty is just a hormonal issue. It's very simple to fix. Assuming that this gentleman or this young man has not made an executive decision that he feels more comfortable in the opposite sex body, and he's very confused, if he's just genuinely confused, then we can treat that. We essentially will have him come in, he will get his blood work done, that blood work will be evaluated by professionals, and he will be administered a hormone therapy treatment, which essentially he can actually grow out of. It's not something he'll need forever. It's just to kind of get his puberty and that part in his life set back up for success on the right path. Now, with this transgender title, I have a young man going through puberty in this scenario, very confused about life, He's relating more to his girlfriends. He's more sensitive. His chest could be very sensitive. Um, him and his mom could be attached at the hip, where this is a big time for boys to come into building a rapport with their father because of all these new changes. He's not becoming aroused as often because he's got no testosterone flowing. He may acquire a disorder called gynecomastia because the estrogen that he does have is too high, or the testosterone that he is producing because he's not using it like the other boys running around doing crazy activities is aromatizing into estrogen and spiking. And gynecomastia is extremely painful. It is only something that you can cure with a surgery, and it is not a fun thing to have to deal with. A lot of teenage boys are having that more and more often. It has a lot to do with their inactivities on top of other hormonal issues. But getting back to the point, we have a title. This gentleman's confused. His parents are confused. They don't have my education or yours now. So they're saying, well, hey, he's saying, maybe I was meant to be a woman. Maybe this transgender thing really is a real issue, and I'm determining now that I was probably meant to be a female. It makes sense. I relate more with the girls. I don't understand why the guys are doing what they're doing. I don't have that same sex drive. I don't have that. The beard's not growing. My voice isn't changing. So you have a very confusing time in a young man's life with now a title. And the therapists love it. They eat this stuff up because that's a future client forever. That's a huge client. And the parents' first idea is to get them on medication and treat them with some kind of a Prozac or some kind of a anti-anxiety, and to have them see a therapist. I can't tell you how many clients I've had over the years that have their kids in therapy and on medication because they just don't understand what's happening. Reverse, we'll flip it. You have a young lady going through puberty, and this young lady has now testosterone spiking. She's not growing boobs, so her chest is staying a little smaller. Her voice isn't raising. She's relating more to the boys. She's having trouble controlling her sex drive and her libido because this is not something women were meant to control at that age. Okay? Women are not meant to understand how to control a heightened testosterone at any age. We'll get back to this when we talk about midlife crisis. Midlife crisis is a reversal and a role change in hormonal activity that actually isn't you and your partner growing apart. Just a teaser here. It's just a hormonal issue that could be very easily fixed and or maintained. But back to this young lady. So she's struggling and confused. She's not blending with her girlfriends. Her girlfriends are probably calling her a slut or a whore because she's got this libido that's raging that she's not supposed to have at the wrong time in her life. She's having trouble focusing on school, on sports, because of how much energy and how much power is coming from this hormone that she's never going to be used to essentially managing. And now there's the title. There it is again, big print, transgender. You have a young lady confused, going through puberty, and we have this title. Now it's becoming, so this is where it becomes psychological, and this is where it's hard to figure out and unfurl whether it's a psychological issue or whether it's a hormonal issue. I say it starts hormonal and very scientific, and then it becomes psychological because of that title. The world puts a lot of stress on teenagers to come into themselves. You have a female here. She feels like she should be a guy. She's hanging with the guys. Her voice is still lower. Her boobs aren't growing. She's saying to herself, maybe I'm transgender. Maybe I was meant to be a boy. Because now it's there. So it's just like easy to kind of flow into it. What's going to end up happening is they are going to need psychological help because they eventually will have lied to themselves during this awkward time in their life, and then start to acknowledge that, then they're going to just push and press to be that guy, or for the boy to be that woman. So I feel like I had this feeling at puberty, and I know it within my bones that I was meant to be the opposite sex. So now they're actually, the funny thing is, they tend to seek hormone therapists to finalize the transition. So it's really interesting to me that nobody's taken that into consideration. You have these women going in for testosterone injections because they want to maintain that feeling that they got at puberty, because it doesn't last, because it's not meant to happen that way. So how have they not reversed the process and said, well, maybe the hormones is where the issue was? You know, it's very simple for them to understand later that they need to maintain different hormones to maintain the opposite sex. Why not reverse it and say, maybe that's where the issue lied originally, and it's not a psychological thing. Now, when I say a psychological thing, I mean solely that human as an adult, I don't believe adult is I believe adult is when you can really tell the difference between right and wrong. What's right in this world, what's wrong in this world, what's good in this world, what's evil. As far as I'm concerned, you could become adult at any age. It just has to do with where you are at in understanding life and the basic simple principle. So at puberty, I feel like nowadays most teenagers are basically thinking like an adult would have probably 15 or 20 years ago. They have a different perspective on the world. It has a lot to do with social media. With that said, have you made a decision that you feel more comfortable in the opposite sex's body? That is totally possible. Absolutely, that is possible. And that is a psychological evaluation that each individual teenager or young adult must do. And I don't take away from that. If you have made that decision that this is who you were meant to be and you feel more comfortable there, absolutely, 100% more power to you. That's fantastic. This video is not about what's right and what's wrong. It's about understanding what's happened as time evolves forward. I don't want people to miss the little red flags and the little ideas that are popping up in the industry because, you know, they have that tunnel vision. So you have the title, you have a very controversial and a very tough time and a confusing time for teenagers, puberty, a very hormonal time where the body's changing, and now you have a title. And that's all this video is about, is helping you guys understand and see what some of us professionals are seeing happen in slow motion. And I'm just trying to bring you up to speed. It's important you know these things, because if this is one of your kids one day, or one of your kids now, or one of your kids in the past, take them in to see a professional, get some blood work done. It's a really cheap, simple thing. The professional will look at it, the hormone therapist will evaluate it, and if they need to be on a small regimen for a short period of time, we'll get them on it. You'd be amazed at how much it helps the kid, or the teenager, or the young adult. There's so many different mental, you know, like I said, psychiatrists don't agree with this because they're all in the head. There's some modern psychiatrists that believe that the body and the mind are connected hormonally and in different ways, and those are the psychiatrists you want to see. But there are a lot of old school psychiatrists that believe if it's not up here, then it doesn't compute. And that's not correct, because hormones will make up here completely different. So it's really important, especially when we come back later to my discussion that I'll be bringing in here in a couple of weeks about midlife crisis and how hormones and nutrition affect that. I can't tell you how many of my clients' marriages I've saved just by simply having them evaluate their hormones. So just some food for thought. I hope this video was, you know, a little bit informative. At the very least, I may have your mind thinking in a direction that it wasn't before, and that's enough for me. That's why I share these videos. That's why I go over this stuff. I'm not necessarily always trying to whistleblow. Where I will do that, I will come out and whistleblow on some things. There's a special coming up about what the doctors don't know will hurt you. That's me doing a little bit of whistleblowing, and I feel like that's important in this day and age because not enough people are doing it. Too many people are getting away with things they shouldn't be getting away with. So tune in to my next Patreon where we're going to go over, that's the topic actually. The next Patreon is what the doctors don't know will hurt you, where you're going to see me get a little bit more aggressive about my opinion. And you may be seriously considering searching for the right family practitioner based on their responses when we're done. So this is all stuff and how it relates to your life, and I just want to make your life easier and I want to make your life better, and that's why you're on this Patreon site, and that's why you're going to continue to watch, is because you want to stay ahead of the game and you want to be able to help your kids, your family, and your friends understand things that you otherwise wouldn't recognize because they're not outside the realm of tunnel vision. And it's totally fine if you have tunnel vision to be a career-driven person. I'm not taking away from your drive. I'm just trying to add to the short video a different perspective for you to consider. you need a video chat or text message, any concerns or questions about the video, feel free to do so. I'm on here full time, and I will be here.